Lana looked around the council chamber. The 50-odd races looked uncomfortable as they waited. The ambassador of the Lashri stood at the podium. By every account of her people's greatest mind stated that he and all his race should be enslaved by now, and yet here he was despite all calculations. What's more, he was asking for a race. They met while at war with the Zandir race to be allowed into the council. The Lashri had stated that these humans, as he called them, had apparently been the ones to help them win the war, and what more all they asked for in return, be introduced to the rest of the council. Odd, she thought, for a race to have effectively thrown a war of annihilation into a complete victory for the would-be loser, and only asked for an introduction, was absurd. The humans are a kind, helpful race, and are eager for peace. I and my race do believe that the human race will offer many wonderful things to the council, and the galaxy as a whole. Lashri spoke, glancing about the room, his eyes landing on her. She felt like he wanted to say something, but continued on his speech. To quote a human phrase, that they will seek out life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness with an energy that would leave us dizzying. But I am not their ambassador, so allow me to introduce Ambassador Davion Smith to the stand, Lashri said, and he gestured to the door. Almost with no cue, the door opened, and a human walked in, dressed in textiles that covered most of his form. Not that impressive, she snickers to herself. It was barely her height, only about 6 units tall, 4 limbs ended in fingers and a patch of red fur on his head. Smooth, soft-looking skin resting on what she could assume was an endoskeleton. She reached down for her translator. Of course she would need it to understand this human. Thank you, Ambassador Thalsnik, the human said in Galactic Common. Oh, it speaks, she thought. And thank you for taking the time to speak to me, esteemed members of this council. I'm here this cycle to request membership to this grand body, so the Terran Union would gain the support of this council, it said, as it curled communication orifices at them. Friendly signal, her translator informed her. I will be frank and forward. Humanity's first steps into the stars was not a good one for us. He shifted, slightly. Discomfort. Good, it knows its place. We had stumbled into a war. The war was between the Lashri Star Conclave and the Zandir Empire. It was a mistake. We had no hand in the war. It paused again. Sadness. However, the Zandir Empire had refused our attempts to rectify our mistake, and so we began to defend the small part of this great galaxy that we had claimed. We believe that in time this war will end, and we could call out and clear the air. It glanced over to her left. Hate. What is it looking to? She followed his gaze. It was fixed on the Zandir ambassador. Is he cowering? She asked inwardly. The Zandir were a proud warrior race, more than a match for most races, not so much hers, but most of the races at the council. Yet it was. A Zandir shrunk down, tucked in his neck, and folded the frills of the crown. Even in hopeless engagement with her people, the Zandir soldiers didn't react like this, and to a new race to the galaxy. Fools, she scoffed to herself. This race was like no other race that hadn't come before. The human continued. We, the Terran Union, have found war amongst the stars, and we feel only sorrow. To see such wonder and yet be crushed by disappointment is terrible. When the Lashri came, we believed ourselves doomed. We awaited their ships to attack and prayed to our goddess for deliverance with this fate. His gaze shifted to the Lashri ambassador, camaraderie. His friends with the Lashri, they are doomed. And yet when the Lashri asked if we needed help, we found hope that day. And so humanity made a singular vow that day, and in one voice asked them to take us to the stars. Humanity is still in the beginning stages of FDL, and we are still mastering shield technology. Our few ships, the ones we have, are being retrofitted to support these new advancements, made with the help of the Lashri. However, we have to ensure that 2 things about humanity is made clear, and it is not without reason. That reason applies to both of what I would like to address before this council, it said. Sorrow. Humanity has but 2 things, 2 messages we would like for you to understand. Before I state what they are, I would like to address why they are so. It plugged in a data chip into the podium, and moved his hand, sending her and everyone a file. Humanity has laws in regard to warfare, and how it should be conducted. We humans don't like war. We believe that it is in everyone's best interest to agree to the document I have just sent you. Oh, how nice. A new toy for the Empire to shred at home, she muttered. Beep beep. And someone has agreed to his requests. Let's see. She looked at the document and rubbed her eyes in amazement. The first signature was from Zandir. Beep beep. And then Lashri. This document is a rectified agreement to the terms of war and how it should be conducted, amended to include all sentient life. I will summarize as it is long. In essence, it states that the only people to be attacked or harmed in war are to be solely combatants, and attacks against non-combatants is a breach of these rules. Furthermore, any use of the latter stated forms of war are also in breach of these rules. In the event that either of these rules are broken, the offended nation can disregard this rule and engage in total war. It stopped again, taking a long pull from its water. Also, with our armed forces, we have a role called medic. These soldiers are to be considered non-combatants and are not to be harmed. If one is harmed or attacked, no mercy will be shown to the attacker or to his squad. It stopped. Regiment. It looked around the chamber as others read the document. And so I will lay before the reason for this document. During the war between the Zandir and Lashri, an orbital defense cannon fired on a Zandrian scout ship, believing it to be an asteroid on a collision course with our colony, on the planetoid YS53, Ganymede, it exclaimed. Pain. It is in distress over a colony. Weak, she shuddered. The colony soon learned of their mistake and contacted our homeworld and began to learn all we could from their databank. When the Zandir fleet arrived, a message was sent to them, and it read as such, "We deeply regret the loss we have caused, and hope that you do not look badly upon humanity. We ask for your forgiveness and ask that you show mercy." This message was sent 4 times as their fleet approached our colony. We did all we could with our limited technology. Grief, pain, anger, hate. The Zandiran fleet ignored all hails. Its eye drifted off, and glassed the colony from orbit. It roared into the chamber. We humans did not want to fight because we believed that the stars held the promise of peace. We lost 2,000 souls that day, and we loathe the Zandir for what they did. She leaned over to the Galavrck ambassador. Oh no, it's anger, she said with a chuckle, which the Galavrck shared in kind. The human ambassador took a deep breath, eyes like cold ether glass and calm as he released his breath. I suppose you are all curious as to why I'm so angry, so allow me to explain. As you all know, YS5 is a gas giant. In the space sector YS92, YS3, Earth, is humanity's home world. The room burst into shouts and roars. Almost every ambassador was on their feet at this revelation, and she understood why. Humanity are death worlders. Her adrenal glands were already pumping when she heard, but something struck her. The Lashri ambassador invited them. The only reason the war had begun was because the last death worlders they met nearly destroyed their race. So why invite them? The room calmed down, and the human continued. I understand and respect your fear. However, humanity has as much interest in war and conquest as the young Lashri has for swimming. Humanity has learned from its world, a harsh and sometimes unforgiving place, the value of life. To us, every single life, regardless of what form it takes, is sacred. We have shed our warlike mentality when we stepped to the stars. However, to our dismay, we found a galaxy at war, and so I shall move on to our only 2 statements to this galaxy. The first is simple. Never again. This is simple. As to why we choose it, is 2. The Zandir killed 2,331 souls on Ganymede. The Lashri has stayed our hand against the Zandir. At the final hour, as the Lashri fleet over Zingrin, they pleaded for us to not become the monsters we saw in the Zandir. And so never again will we stay our hand. Never again will we show mercy at the final hour. Never again will we allow someone to kill our civilians, it roared again, before taking a deep breath. And the second statement is more complex, but I will elaborate in a second. We haven't forgotten. Lana sat in her seat. Every nano-unit of her being screamed at her to run. But why? It can't be the human. Her kind has dealt with death orders before. She felt her skin clench together to protect her from an unseen predator. This statement is from our armed forces, and to be frank, it is more for the protection of your nations than ours. It said in a calm, collected coldness that her translator said was truthful. Though your technological level is much higher than humanity, and our fleet is still growing, I am afraid to inform you that humanity's understanding of warfare and how war is to be fought is far more advanced than any of your races. In fact, the tactics and battle strategies you use and openly deploy, we read about in our history. And those battles were fought 1,500 Terran years ago, on a deaf world. True. It is mad, she thought. To think that they kept fighting was insane. The battle lines and tactics her people employed were used due to how well they are with the weapons they used. She glanced down to the document still open on her terminal, and began to scroll down it. Also, the human ambassador said, the weapons technology that this Galactic Council deems the standard weapon of war, to us is a high-tech relic of a bygone era. Had you come when the French Revolution happened, we would have loved them. However, as it stands at the moment, we can deploy far more devastating weapons and tactics than you. And so I state again, we haven't forgotten. If you come for the Terran Union, you will find no battlefield you muster on, no rows of Terran linemen ready to trade laser fire, no cannonade to fire upon you as you march to our line. You will be fighting us as we had fought when our planet began to die on us. The chamber was still. It was unnerving. She looked to the Xandir ambassador, only to see he had shrunk so much in his seat that he was practically falling to the floor. Then she looked to the Lashri. His feathers stood on ends, his eyes wide and snout raised ever so slightly. Joy. He was happy. She could not let this human's insult to her people's way of war go unanswered, and she gathered her thoughts. How dare you! A booming roar came from the Galavrck ambassador. You dare to come to us, offer us peace, and then in the same cycle insult our institutions of war. He stood up. You dare to enter here and to take to us who can and can't be killed in war. He boomed, as he stepped towards the human. You dare to challenge us with war, to threaten us? The Galavrck towered over the human, his forearms behind his back, ready to strike the human. This will do. We can watch and learn, and then after the Galavrck start fighting, we will strike, she giggled. It will be easy to form a tactic after the opening battles of this war a few times. I do, bellowed the human, almost as loud as the ambassador. I dare because I know war. I have witnessed the war Xandir unleashed. I dare because I see the wars you wage. I have seen the loss of life you waste. I dare because I have felt the sorrow of a parent losing their kid, of a husband losing their partner. I dare because in this place you stare and bellow at the last colonists of New Hope. I dare because I have nothing to lose here, and neither do my people. The Galavrck stepped back. I demand the rights of war, he declared. The Galavrcks demand to be the ones to subject these lowly humans. The ambassador said, looking over his shoulders at the council. Does anyone challenge my right? He called. No one raised their hands. Lana looked to the Lashri ambassador. He sat shaking his head and then to the Xandir, who was, as the translator stated, was praying for the Galavrck. And then she looked to the human. It had curled back his Orpheus and revealed a row of sharp fangs, such as a predatory display, like the kind she saw at the zoo from fearsome predators of her people's past. A chill ran up, then, down her nervous system. Then it is to be a war between humanity and the Galavrck? The human asked, like a seasoned warrior would ask his battle clan. And what will be the terms of engagement? We will tear and rip your people. Your males killed, the females sold as slaves in our worlds to be used, and the younglings tossed from airlocks into the hungry void. We will show a war you can't imagine. Weapons that will rend your worlds to bleed, and war that will consume your people. And we will rid the galaxy of another death world race of vermin, yelled the Galavrckan. The human looked to his right, and then back to the Galavrck, and in a calm voice with that wide, predatory grin said, You sure you don't want to sign that document before we start?